Hey guys, and welcome back to the reading of T.L. Osborn's book Soul Winning. We are on chapter 15. Chapter 15 is entitled The Top Priority, and this is also reason number 6 for soul winning, the blood of the unconverted. There are those Christians who have God's vision, a world vision, a John 3:16 vision. They see Europe, Asia, Africa, North and South America, Australia, the island nations, all the world, every creature. They have a trans-world vision. Soul winning is not reserved for missionaries or preachers or evangelists. You and I can do it. It is a priority in real Christianity. It is its heartbeat, its passion. Chapter 15, the top priority. We are soul winners because we do not want the blood of the unconverted on our hands. As a young Christian, one of the Bible portions which impressed me was the 3rd chapter of Ezekiel. God speaks about the reason that those who know him should share his message with others so that everyone can have a chance to receive his blessing. I have made you a watcher. Give warning from me. When I say to the wicked, you shall surely die, and give no warning to save lives, the wicked shall die in their iniquity, but their blood will I require at your hand. Ezekiel 3, chapter 3, verse 17 and 18. Then later in the same book, God repeats that message. If the watcher sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, and the people are not warned, if the sword comes and takes away any person from among them, they are taken away in their iniquity, but their blood will I require at the watcher's hand. Ezekiel 33 and verse 6. In chapter 33, the idea is stated again. For additional emphasis, when I say to the wicked, you shall surely die, if you do not speak to warn them from their way, the wicked shall die in their iniquity, but their blood will I require at your hand. Ezekiel 33 and verse 8. Here are 3 witnesses to alert us that we can do something about the unconverted that will cause them to be saved instead of being lost. Let's read some of these verses using contemporary terms to relate them to the soul winner today. I have made you a watcher. Therefore, hear the word at my mouth and give warning from me. When I say to the unconverted, you shall surely die, and you give them no warning, nor speak to warn them of their ways to save their lives, those same unconverted people shall die in their iniquity, but their blood will I require at your hand. Yet if you warn the unconverted, and they turn not from their sins, nor from their sinful ways, they shall die in their iniquities, but you have delivered your soul. A motivation for life. Their blood will I require at your hand. Each time Daisy and I read these words, we reviewed our priorities. Those Bible verses motivated us from the time we were teenagers. We did not, and I do not want the blood of the unconverted required at our hands. This is another reason we are soul winners. This is why we share the gospel. And this is why we have given and continue to give our lives to worldwide gospel ministry. This is why we have consistently done everything we could do, utilizing every tool for evangelism available to share Christ with the unreached. It is why we have sponsored so many thousands of national preachers as full-time missionaries among the unchurched peoples, tribes, villages, and areas of the unevangelized world. Literature in 132 languages. This is why we have published many hundreds of tons of gospel literature in 132 languages and dialects. It is why we produce films and audio or video cassettes in around 70 major languages as tools for soul winners and for release through mass media. This is why we have witnessed the enormous growth of this world ministry. And this is why our daughter, Dr. LaDonna, and I continue these mass crusades, national teaching seminars, and all these evangelism outreaches around the world. This is the reason for every outreach of this ministry and why we encourage Christians to take part in the ministry of evangelism. By sharing and giving Christ's message to the world, they become soul winners among the unreached as much as those who carry the message, and they share the rewards as much as those who share the good news at the front. We are people who have received word from the Lord, as Ezekiel talked about, and our mission is to warn the world, like John the Baptist did, to flee from the wrath to come, Matthew 3 and verse 7. In the words of the Apostle Paul, woe unto me if I do not preach the gospel in 1 Corinthians 9:16. We do not want the blood of the unconverted on our hands, either at home or abroad. So we choose to be soul winners. A lifetime commitment. We do not pretend that we alone can win the world to Christ, but my daughter, Dr. LaDonna Osborn, and I stay as involved in global evangelism as though God's plan depended upon us alone. If we cannot win everyone, we can certainly win some, and we shall minister as though the reaping depended entirely on us. A sophisticated businesswoman of prominence who was touring our world headquarters in Tulsa, Oklahoma, requested an interview. She was inquisitive and intelligent. We responded to her probing. Then she gave us a final appraisal with these words: Dr. Osborn, you seem to be very wrapped up in what you call world evangelism. Do you think that your activities alone will win the world to Christ? I responded, no, but we intend to be involved as though the entire job depended on us. She was pleased and became a partner in worldwide soul winning. We are soul winners because we have taken God's word seriously. We do not want the blood of the unconverted to be required at our hands. It is as simple as that. When our world headquarters building in Tulsa was completed, we displayed a large metal sketch of the world. Adjacent to the map, in metal letters, we placed the words of our life's motto: one way, Jesus; one job, evangelism. We keep our attention focused on this maxim to impress upon others the fact that this is a trans-world ministry. When God loved, he loved a world. When he gave his son, he did not do it for, When he gave his son, he did it for a world. When Christ died, he died for a world. God's vision is a world vision. Our vision is too. Measure the vision. Many people are localized in their vision. They see their community. They think of their church or denomination, but have little or no interest beyond those limits. Others have a broader vision spreading out to their state or province or tribe, and they are concerned with evangelizing certain areas, but they have little concern beyond those borders. Still, others feel responsible for their nation. They will give and pray for the evangelization of their own country, but their vision is still localized. They are what we call a nationalistic in their soul-winning interest. There are others who have broader vision that extends to the limits of their continent. They are interested in continental evangelism and will make any sacrifice to reach those boundaries, but even they are localized. Getting God's viewpoint. Then there are the Christians who have God's vision, a world vision, a John 3:16 vision. They see Europe, Asia, Africa, North and South America, Australia, the island nations, all the world, every creature. They have a trans-world vision. With jet aircraft, television, electronic mail, and satellite communication, we live on a small, crowded planet. The whole world is within our reach. So the Christian church today can embrace a world vision. Many times we have boarded a plane at some intercontinental airport abroad, soared off the runway, climbed to great altitude, and then looked back down upon the vast countryside. I have often pondered the soul winners we had encountered during our mission there. Before our arrival, many of them only had a localized vision, limited by their cultural environment and by their religion. They had not reached beyond the borders of their city or province or tribe or nation. Most of them had never traveled or had access to libraries or reading materials that might have expanded their thinking. But in the course of our crusade and seminar, they had gotten God's viewpoint of their world. Their vision was no longer localized. They had become concerned for the whole of their globe. As a result of the seminars and conferences which we have conducted, we know of Africans engaged in evangelism in China, South Americans going to win souls in Alaska, Indonesians reaching the lost in Europe, and Asians ministering in the Caribbean nations, Filipinos proclaiming Christ in India, Koreans raising up churches in France, Brazilians carrying the gospel across Angola, and believers of other nations ministering around the world. Probe the priorities. Another vital phrase of our motto, which we emphasize to others, is around the clock, around the world. Most of our mass crusades and national seminars are conducted in countries abroad. Most of our literature is published in languages for the peoples of distant nations. Most of our world evangelism funds are used beyond our own home front. Most of our evangelism projects concern reaching the unreached with the gospel. Most of our films, tapes, and other tools for evangelism are designed for soul winning in other lands and for mass media abroad. World evangelism is the top priority of this ministry. It is doing the thing that is nearest God's heart, the one thing Christ authorized every believer to do. When it is top priority, one invests more in it than anything else. One allots more time to it, more energy, more plans, more efforts, more thought, more money, more of life. Taking personal action to share the gospel of Christ with all the world is one way that we can make sure that the blood of the unconverted will not be required at our hands. The best missionary program. I lectured on giving for missions in a certain church, and afterwards the pastor took me aside and said, "Dr. Osborn, I have been changed by listening to you today. I never perceived gospel missions abroad as a ministry potential for my own life. I expected that to be done by our missionaries, never realizing that I could personally be a gospel messenger abroad without going overseas myself. I never thought about investing to sponsor a substitute or to send printed or recorded preachers on my behalf." Then he added, "I always had a great deal of pride in my denomination's missionary program. I believe that it was the best, and I often spoke highly about it to others. It was not what I was doing, but what my denomination was doing. That made me proud. I talked about our organization, our program, our mission projects. But, Dr. Osborn, I personally invested very little in our missions program. If every member of my organization did like me, we would have no missionary programs. And for me, it was a denominational project, not a personal investment, not a personal involvement. Soul winning is not reserved for missionaries or preachers or evangelists. Soul winning is the mission to which every Christian believer is called. You and I are the ones to whom this mission is committed. It is our priority, our life, our passion. Too often Christians have been impressed that only professional clergy persons can serve as ministers, but Christ dwells in every believer. Each Christian is his witness. Every converted person becomes his mouthpiece. Christ wants to speak through believers. They are his witnesses. Millions of hurting, unloved, despairing people who would probably resist or resent the words of a clergy person will listen intently to an ordinary lay person who is willing to share what Christ has meant in his or her life. The portable tool. An old man wept as he grasped my hand, showing me his battered tape recorder. He said, "Dr. Osborn, you are my preacher. I carry you with me on tapes. From house to house, into hospitals, jails, and convalescent homes, I put you on the old machine and you preach for me. Then I pray for the listeners and they get saved and healed. I'm so glad that at my advanced age I can still be a soul winner." A vision is born. Since our youth, we have dreamed of ways to witness for Christ. Those dreams became visions, and visions inspired us to prayer. Faith put an action to those prayers. Soon, those dreams became living, pulsating realities. Years ago, Daisy and I sat in Dr. Oswald J. Smith's missionary convention in Toronto, Canada, and dreamed of sending national foot soldiers to the frontiers of evangelism, extending the gospel to the regions beyond. If people could have read our minds that day as we sat in the People's Church, they might have mocked us as youthful, emotional visionaries. Other ministers listened to that tall, white-haired, aristocratic missionary spokesman, Oswald J. Smith, as he shared the opportunity of the world evangelism. And they were impressed, and they made notes on the statistics which he reported, but did little about it. But that stately gentleman was building an unquenchable fire in the souls of Daisy and T.L. Osborn. A new vision was being conceived. Soon, the program of national missionary evangelism was born, and a new day dawned for sharing the gospel worldwide. Pace setters with a purpose. For more than half a century after the conference and that vision had been conceived in our young hearts, no Christian leader abroad ever had to say, "We would reach the unreached of our nation, but we don't have the funds." We offered gospel leaders throughout the world regular monthly assistance for every trained and qualified national preacher, man or woman, whom they would send as full-time missionaries to the unreached. Through that world-changing program, over 30,000 national preachers, male and female, have been sponsored as full-time missionaries in 135,000 previously unreached tribes, towns, villages, and areas that have, as a result, now received the gospel through these talented national messengers. This program has literally changed our world, and it has made it better. The world's newest missionaries. For generations, European and North American church denominations have been sending the gospel to non-Christian nations of the world. In almost every national crusade that we have ever conducted in over 100 nations, our evangelism efforts have been culminated with a week-long seminar during which we teach several hours daily. These periods of intense teaching have had national influence. We emphasize that every Christian, whether male or female, and whatever tribe, color, or race is called and chosen by Christ to be a messenger. We underscored in each nation the fact that all believers of all nationalities are commissioned by our Lord to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. We faithfully stress that God never planned for the whites of Europe and North America to be his exclusive missionary corps. His plan is that each Christian of either gender and of any social status should go with the gospel to the unconverted. Diversity in missions. During the earlier years of our world ministry, the term missionary only applied to light-skinned citizens of Western industrialized nations. Anointed Christian believers and leaders in the Third World had never understood that they were qualified to be missionaries. That seemed both unreasonable and certainly unbiblical to us. Everywhere we have ministered, we have emphasized that nationals can become the best missionaries because of advantages in language skills and in their familiarity with national living standards and cultural traditions. Following our national crusades in Chile, we spent time with the pastors and gospel workers there, sharing with them the vision of world evangelism and the commission of Christ to reach every creature. No one had challenged them to reach unreached of their nations. They responded without hesitation and began to take action. As a result of those intense days of teaching, over 30 successful Chilean pastors took measures to install other ministers as pastors of their churches so that they could consecrate themselves and go as missionaries into the mountain areas of Argentina, Bolivia, Peru, and into the Amazon jungles and delta areas of Brazil.